G'day, you might remember a little while back I did a video about Monaco and how much you could possibly spend on a weekend in Monaco, and it was a lot. But a lot of you said, what about doing a video about how little you could spend to see an F1 race? Well, I've given it much thought and done a bit of research, and your prayers have been answered. So let's get stuck into the cheapest F1 options. When it comes to what are the cheapest F1 races, two races come to mind for me, Budapest and Suzuka in Japan. But knowing that a lot of you are Americans, I've also delved into a cheap way of doing Austin, Texas at the Circuit of the Americas. So you're going to find in this video details of 3 separate races. Let's kick it off with Budapest, and I'm assuming that you're travelling from London, and as such you will take a flight, and the cheapest I could find, and bear in mind I did this research on the 9th of August 2023, and the cheapest flight I could find is with Air Serbia. Comes out at 384 Australian dollars, that's about 250 US. And what's Air Serbia like? Well, the reviews state that in business and economy on long haul, staff attention can be a bit inconsistent, but on short haul business, they do have complimentary catering, but in economy, you'll be buying on board. There's a 2 p.m. departure that arrives in at Budapest at midnight. It's actually a 17-hour total journey, but most of that is a 13-hour layover at Belgrade Airport, which looks okay. So let's assume you've landed into Budapest Airport. The accommodation I found, the cheapest was actually the Flow Hostel, which works out at $123.70 US for 3 nights accommodation. Now, I'm assuming that you're going to be going with someone else, so your share of that will be half. But have a look. Do you really want to stay in a hostel like this? This is almost like a capsule hotel in Japan. I think not. So instead, I've put you in the Casa Nora guest house. It works out at $82 each for 3 nights. Now, I've assumed that you're flying in on the Thursday and flying out on the Sunday night. So you'll only need 3 nights accommodation, and you'll be at the track on Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Now, going to and from the track, you could get a Bolt, which is the local equivalent of Uber. Works out between 25 and 35 US dollars each way. But given your limited budget, you'll probably take public transport, and you'll budget anywhere from 30 minutes to 90 minutes each way, but the cost is about $4 US each way. Once you get out to the track, you're going to need a ticket. And look at this, pretty darn good value. And where can you sit? Well, mainly up at the back section of the track, but it's not a long track. It's not like Baku where it takes forever to get from one end to the other. And the seating is on grass, it's on hills, and oftentimes you can get high enough that you can see over the catch fence. Meals, well, it's bloody cheap to eat in Budapest, and the food is good. You can't take food into the track though, so I've budgeted $10 US a day for food at the track. Breakfast, you'll get away with a few dollars, and for dinner, well, you'll probably go into some of the takeaway joints around the main square, pick yourself up some beer or wine, and you can actually eat outside in the parks. And the one that's right in the centre of town opposite the Ferris wheel is fantastic. It's such a great buzz. There's plenty of young and old people enjoying the beautiful, mild Budapest evenings, or head down to the Danube where you can sit on the banks there and have this beautiful view over what is, I think, one of Europe's best cities. And what will you budget for food? Well, I've put you down for 15 US per night for a meal somewhere in town. Heading back to the track, you will need to be aware that on Saturday and Sunday nights, getting out of the track can be quite a lengthy procedure. What you might be better off doing is hanging around at this exit and waiting for the drivers to come out. It's a festive atmosphere, lots of people there hanging about, and I think you'd find it quite joyous. And while you're there, the crowds wanting to get on public transport back to the city will have well and truly thinned. Interestingly, this spot here, where the taxis are currently housed, used to be the site of a red light area back in the early 2000s. And because this sort of activity is legal in Hungary, they set up what they termed an erotic camp, where they had numerous workers out there catering to the demands of the F1, I guess, largely male clientele. Now, that lasted just 1 race, and it was decided after that that they would not go back to that. So having slept well, hopefully, having enjoyed some good local food and some great racing at the Hungaroring, you're then left to fly home, and your Air Serbia flight departs at 8:30 and arrives at noon the next day. Yes, it is another long flight with another long layover. But you've saved quite a lot of money by making a few concessions here. And look at the end budget for your 3 days at the Hungarian Grand Prix. You'd be hard-pressed to find any other race offering you such good value. Now, on to Japan. Now, the reason I've picked Japan as the next race is because the Suzuka track is a mind blower. You want to go there. Yes, you want to see some marvellous racing. You want to see one of the world's best tracks. But perhaps even more so, you want to see the fans. My gosh, they're the most marvellous people you will ever come across. So I've assumed that you're going to be travelling from Los Angeles to Tokyo, and then you're going to train down. So what are you going to pay for a flight? Well, when I did my research, I could find a non-stop flight, 12 hours, LA to Haneda in economy. American Airlines has one for $979 US. But it's nasty timing. You'll leave at just before 1 a.m. and you'll arrive into Japan at 4:45 a.m. You will get a couple of meals on the flight, even in economy. So landing in Haneda, you're still quite a long way from where you need to be in Suzuka. So you'll be catching, well, if you're looking at the cheapest option, you'll be going by bus. If you've got a little bit more money, you go by train. But the bus will set you back $17. It's 8 hours to Nagoya. The train, about 2 hours, but look at the price, $100. Now, where are you going to stay? The Nagoya Fushimi Mont Blanc Hotel. Now, for the sake of this exercise, I've given you 4 nights in Japan because you've travelled such a long way. In on the Thursday and out on the Monday. Now, this hotel, you'll pay just $211 for 4 nights. And is it a luxury? No, you wouldn't expect it for that much money. How big is the room, perhaps? 12 square metres. Yeah, 12 square metres. Now, that's not uncommon in Japan. But as you can see here at the Nagoya Fushimi Mont Blanc, it clearly says it sleeps 2 in your 12 square metre room on one single bed. And if you're 2 mates sharing a room, yeah, you're probably going to sleep head to toe. But how do you get from the hotel to Suzuka track? You'll probably take a train. And I think there's also a bus as well required. Anyway, it's not that expensive. It's about probably $8 US each way. Takes an hour. Forget driving. Take public transport. It's always on time, it's always clean, and it's darn good value. Let's talk about food in Japan, and I can tell you that the Family Mart, if you're on a budget, will be your best friend. This is a chain of small convenience stores, but they sell so much more. They sell sushi, sandwiches, chicken, all sorts, and it's great value. So how cheaply could you eat in Japan? Well, you could spend as little as $20 US for 4 evening meals if you had 3 lots of Family Mart noodles, and on the final night perhaps you spoiled yourself and went out for a sirloin beef katsu set and perhaps had a draft beer. At the track I've budgeted about $23 all up for your meals at the track. Breakfast, yeah, $11, Family Mart sandwiches. And snack-wise, I'm going to recommend you get 2 things. You get the Pocky, you get a couple of packets of those, and you get these. We call them ship biscuits, but they are the most magnificent chocolate-covered biscuits I have ever eaten. How does a 3-day general admission pass for $105 US sound? That's right. It's one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest, general admission that you'll get anywhere on the 24-race calendar. And where can you sit? You actually get to sit in some stands. Now, they're not luxury grandstands, but it's certainly tiered seating. You can choose from L, M, N, and P, which is much better than you'll find general admission at most tracks. Do you need a raincoat? Yes, it's an absolute essential. It will rain, and you will need an umbrella as well. So make sure you take those items. So how much have you budgeted for your 4-day Japanese Grand Prix extravaganza? On the cheap end, this. And that's pretty darn good value with an overseas flight. And finally, let's have a look at Austin. This is not a cheap race to go to, but I know, given the huge number of American viewers I've got, that you'll want some information about what is a very expensive but still the cheapest of your 3 US races. I'm going to assume that you're driving to Austin, so I'm not including flights, I'm not including fuel or car hire. Assuming you've got to Austin, you're going to need some accommodation. I could find very little available, even now. What I was served up was the Orangewood Inn and Suites Midtown, so it's at least close to the city of Austin. 4 nights there, and this is the cheapest hotel I could find, $637. So assuming you're sharing it with a friend, $319 or so each. Getting to and from the track, what are your options? Well, why don't you drive your own car? Because you can save a fortune, right? No, it's going to cost you a fortune. Yes, you'll have fuel, but look at the price for parking out there. The cheapest you'll find is $150. It's an absolute rort. So leave it at home and take the shuttles. You can get one from Midtown Austin, works out at $29 a day, or you buy a 3-day shuttle for $89. And as much as you might think that's a crazy amount of money to spend, in the general scheme of things, it's the cheapest option, unless you ride a bike. What about a ticket to the race? Well, the cheapest you'll find for a 3-day pass is $545. And that's for this year's race, but I imagine next year's will be around that mark, maybe 10% more. And where do you get to sit for that money? Well, you do have a number of choices, which is good. I think you'd want to sit at turn 1 because that's where you see a lot of the action. You can also see all the way down to the pits. However, it's absolutely packed, especially Saturday and Sunday. So I fear you might be standing up for some, if not all, of the on-track action. But I love the view, and even more so, I love the atmosphere there. And do you get to sit in stands for your 5:45? No, you're pretty much sitting on the grass or standing, although much like some of Japan, you can get vantage points that are high enough to see over the catch fence, which means you don't get that wire between you and the cars. And I've just found out that you can actually buy tickets to the race from Costco, and at a significant discount if you are a Costco member. Now, what about food and entertainment in Austin? Well, both pretty darn expensive. Now, your hotel's a block away from a Whataburger. It's a Texas hamburger chain, much like In-N-Out. And the locals claim it's better than In-N-Out. I don't think it is. And if you have a look at what you'll be paying for a meal there, $8.39 for a burger, $2.29 for a drink, plus the various taxes and tips on top of that. You'll probably eat at the track because you can't take food there, and I'm probably suggesting you'll budget $15 a day for a quick snack at the track. And at night, there's a restaurant called China Fun nearby. Not the classiest looking place, but you'll probably get some orange beef and a couple of drinks and prawn crackers for $35. One night you might head into the 6th Street area of Austin, which is pretty much the party area. Quite rowdy come Saturday and Sunday night, and they don't miss you in terms of pricing. It's at the top end. So maybe you're spending $60 to $100 there. And that leaves a couple of other nights where you might settle for pizzas and get away with $30 or $40 a head. So what have you spent just in Austin without any airfares, without any car hire, without any fuel? This much. As you can see, even Austin, as the cheapest US race, is still pretty darn expensive when it comes to a sporting event. But still, if it's close to you and you've got that much money, you will have a marvellous time. Hopefully you've learnt something out of that, and if you have, perhaps you could click the like button on the video for me. You'll find my digital images at prostarpics.com. You'll find F1 photo books, signed prints like this one from Jackie Stewart at kimillman.com, along with merchandise and wall art. And for my best images live from the track and during the week, go to Instagram and search at Kim Illman. Thanks for watching, and stay passionate. Convert 187 Australian dollars to US.